happy Easter, everybody. It is TVB, and I'm here today because this has been like an annual tradition on my YouTube channel for the past few years now. I mean, I didn't do this last year because I was just like really busy. I was too busy with homework around Easter to do this. But I do an Easter egg hunt on my YouTube channel. Last year, in replace of Easter, like a week later, was 420 Blaze Day, so I did like a whole joint hunt instead. If that video is one of my, I did that for my Call of Duty videos I made last year. But this year, I'm going to do an Easter egg hunt. And the way this works is that throughout this video, there are going to be 9 Easter eggs. This one on screen right now is a freebie. There's going to be 8 more after this one, so there'll be 8 more Easter eggs hidden throughout this video. And you need to comment down below the times that you notice all these Easter eggs. This one right now is a freebie, so just go then, like, like when you list off all the Easter eggs, you find like, okay, I found the first Easter egg at like the minute and 1 second mark or something like that. And yeah, same thing applies to the rest of the other Easter eggs that you'll see throughout this video. And the first person to do so will win a shout out and a possible giveaway. If you like comment all the Easter eggs down below, just like shoot me a message on Twitter or Instagram or either of those, and yeah, we could possibly arrange a giveaway for you. So yeah, I wanted to this video to double as both an Easter egg hunt and as a spoiler talk for Godzilla vs. Kong, because this film is finally here, and I did a spoiler talk for Godzilla King of the Monsters 2 years ago, so I figured, if I did a spoiler talk for that movie, might as well do one for Godzilla vs. Kong as well. And I really hope that like Toho allows there to be more MonsterVerse movies, because this whole like, out of all the cinematic universes we have nowadays, this is probably one of my favorites. And so yeah, here's your warning right now for the rest of this video. There will be a lot of spoilers for Godzilla vs. Kong, so if you've seen Godzilla vs. Kong, or if you don't care about spoilers and are just here for the Easter eggs, keep watching. Otherwise, I don't even know why you decided to click on this video, but I digress. Anyways, I really just wanted to talk about spoilers in Godzilla vs. Kong because, like I said, the world is so fascinating. I think one of the best parts about the movie was the whole Hollow Earth concept. When they brought like King Kong to Antarctica and like he jumps through the different portals and they go to the Hollow Earth and we see where his ancestors came from, it's just so cool and trippy. It's like it's the inside of the Earth. I'm not entirely sure how sunlight works down there, because there is like a clear day cycle, and if there's days, there's also night, so I'm not entirely sure. So he does suspend some disbelief, but it's like the physics is so trippy because like it's inverted, and when you look up, it's not like a ceiling, it's the other side of the Earth that you're looking at. So like you see Kong just like running around, and that moment when like I actually just watched an Altiori video explaining this. That one moment where Kong jumps out and like touches a stone hand that's sticking out of the ground, that was supposed to be like a reference to the classic painting of God like reaching out to poke Adam's finger. So Kong was like Adam, and the stone hand was like God in that instance. And the war bats that we were promised in the trailer, they made a brief appearance, but that was a very well executed fight scene. And as Maya Fitzsimmons would put it, or Maya Simmons, the lady that commented on, was like, oh gross, when like he rips off the war bat's head and just like kind of just like drinks its blood and juice and whatever. Yeah. And I'd say one thing I really enjoyed about Godzilla vs. Kong is all the different like throwbacks and Easter eggs that they laid throughout this video. It's like older like King Kong and Godzilla movies. Like you briefly, when there's different title cards throughout the film where it's like, oh, we're now in Antarctica, or we're now in like Florida. You briefly see like Denham University, which is a clear reference to either both the 2005 King Kong remake or the 1933 original, where like Carl Denham, who's played by Jack Black in the remake, like he's the guy who basically leads the whole expedition to Skull Island and like then captures Kong and brings back to New York. So he's kind of like the villain in that movie, but it was like hilarious how they referenced him in this this new movie in the MonsterVerse. And funny story, Kyle Chandler is in that movie as well. He's like this cowardly, like action star that like wimps out throughout the film. He's in both of that and in this movie. I'm gonna start calling Kyle Chandler Kong Man. Like from now on, whenever I see Kyle Chandler in another movie and I review the said movie that he's in, I'm just gonna call him Kong Man, regardless of what his character's name is. Haha, very funny indeed, I know. And yeah, there's also what in the Hong Kong fight scene with Godzilla and Kong. He's also like hanging off like a skyscraper briefly, which looks a lot like the Empire State Building, just like how he climbed the Empire State Building in 1933 film. And one thing I was kind of hoping for, but I wasn't really expecting it to happen. It would just would have been funny if they did this. Was when was like now that Kong is like Godzilla sized, I was really hoping they would the director would write in a scene where Kong goes to New York City just to like kick down the Empire State Building and how he's big enough to do so. It's just like, payback time, New Yorkers. Like that would have been so hilarious, because he in the original King Kong film, like he's gunned down and is killed on the Empire State Building. So it would have been nice to see that. And they even did it. The scene we all wanted to see in the original King Kong versus Godzilla film from Toho back in the 60s. There's the infamous tree scene when they're in like the morph suits and whatever playing the monsters, like Kong rips out a tree and like shoves it down Godzilla's throat, and it looks like it's implied that Kong was trying to choke Godzilla with the tree, but with how corny special effects were back then, it just looks like, eat your vegetables, and Godzilla's just like, never. Albeit that if I was really hoping they could remake that scene in this movie, but at the same time, with like CGI and nowadays, it would look so stupid if if Kong would rip out like a redwood and like shove it down like Godzilla's throat. But they did still reference it when Kong has the axe with the blade made out of like one of Godzilla's ancestors' dorsal like spines. He shoves the blunt end of it in Godzilla's mouth before Godzilla can use his nuclear breath. And just both the Hong Kong fight scene and the end scene when Godzilla and Kong join forces against Mecha Godzilla were probably my favorite parts of the entire film, because it was just like so it gave us layers to both titans, because these titans are clearly not just animals, they're sentient. Like at the end of the Hong Kong fight scene when Godzilla has like Kong pinned to the ground and has like his foot over his chest, Godzilla easily could have just like blasted Kong right there with his nuclear breath, just killed him, and the fight would be over with and he could claim his crown as King of the Titans. But he doesn't. He just roars at him. He's almost like sadistic about this, like he wants Kong to suffer and live to fight another day so the fight can just continue. But at the same time, it's almost like Godzilla wants Kong to know his place. It's like, hey, don't cross my path again. Because, like, I know that Godzilla's intelligence has been frequently debated, like, over the past, 50 years. And Godzilla's definitely not stupid. I don't think he's stupid. He's not just some big, dumb lizard. But at the same time, he's not as smart as Kong. Kong being a primate, a mammal. He definitely has the upper edge there, alongside with speed and agility and use of tools like the axe. And I will say that throughout this film, there are some moments that kind of have me scratch my head, being like, what? That could have explained better. Like, the film opens with what seemingly is, like, Kong just hanging out on Skull Island, going about his morning routine. And then he rips out a tree, and, like, this is also, like, kind of reminding me of the tree scene in the original King Kong vs. Godzilla film. He, like, rips out a tree, and at first I thought he was going to eat, like, a piece of broccoli, but he sharpens it and throws it at the ceiling, so he's actually not, like, running around his entire island. He's, like, contained in this dome, which I found very confusing at first, because I was like, wait a minute. I get it, this film takes place, like, 50 years after the events of Kong Skull Island, but, like, how on God's creation did they get this giant Godzilla-sized ape to be contained in this big facility? It's almost like they built him like a giant monkey house that you'd see at gorillas in a zoo, which was really weird. Like, that really could have been explained better, like, how on earth do they get, like, Kong to live in this terrarium? And also, when they get Kong off the island, they chain him up on the boat so he can fight when they fight Godzilla in the ocean. It's like, how on earth do they sedate Kong and get him on board on this ship? Because, of course, we've seen, like, Kong be yanked off of Skull Island, and, like, throughout the years, like, throughout the decades that Kong's been around in cinema. Like, in the 1933 film and in 2005 movie, it's like Carl Denham and the crew just, they snare him and, like, throw a chloroform at him and, like, put him under nets and yank, and then, like, they knock him out and then get him onto the boat. But it's like, how on earth did they do that this time with Kong, being as big as he is in these new MonsterVerse movies? Like, that didn't really make any sense. And also, this film is, like, set, I want to say 2 years after the events of, like, Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Like, I feel like technology in this, like, fictitious world has, like, jumped so much in that short amount of time span. I just feel like some things could have been explained better. And, you know, the human characters, I talked about my spoiler-free review that I made the other night. I think, like, the human characters in this movie were purposely underdeveloped. It's like the movie has, like, a hint of self-awareness and borderline just meta humor about its human characters. Like, we all, the filmmakers know what the audience wants, and that is Godzilla and Kong kicking each other's butts. We're not here for the humans. We're here for the Titans. And the human characters in the movie sort of know that, which I thought was funny. Like, there are, like, bits of character development, like, you know, the little girl that Kong befriends is, like, an Iwi, like, tribal girl, and she's deaf and her parents are dead, so, like, she confides in Kong, and they have, like, a relationship. And another character in this movie, I think her name is Maya Simmons, yeah, she, like, in the scene where they're in the Hollow Earth, and, like, Kong is angry, and, like, the Hellhawks is what they're called, these, like, terrifying, you know, like, featherless birds that attack him and swoop up some of the soldiers. Like, during that whole fight scene, like, right before that, like, she's like, oh, I'm the director's daughter. It's like, oh, wow, that was interesting. I wish you could have explained that better. And yet, like, Kong sort of just, like, kills her like a punk bitch. Like, that's basically her fate. Like, they're all inside the hover vehicle or whatever it's called, and Kong just crushes them like a grape, like right there in his hand, and like that was it. It's like, she was an interesting character. I mean, even though she was like a villain, it would have been nice to hear more about her backstory. Same thing with Bernie, the podcast guy that Millie Bobby Brown and her friend follow around in when they're on screen. He made exposition really interesting, him running this podcast, and you do sympathize with him when, like, the reason why he carries, like, this little flask with him everywhere he goes is to honor his now deceased wife. And it's funny, like, he's about to drink it at the end of the movie. It's like, kids, if you want to drink, now's a chance to do it. Drink. So they take the drink from him and just, like, dump it over, like, Mechagodzilla's, like, you know, keyboards. Like, what? Now I gotta die with kids and die sober? What is this? Like, oh, that was a good throwback. And, like, he has most of the comedic moments throughout this movie. Like, honestly, the whole Mechagodzilla, like, plot twist was not very well concealed. We all saw it coming. I was predicting it. Everyone was predicting it. I was like, okay, I don't think it'd be very feasible to have, like, Godzilla or Kong just kill each other, have one clear victor. It would make sense to see these two kind of, like, join forces against a common threat at the end of the movie. And then, of course, that was Mechagodzilla. And the introduction of Mechagodzilla was so well done. Like, because in the post-credit scene for King of the Monsters, we see the mercenary guys, like, find the severed head of Ghidorah and are just like, we'll take it. So we know that, like, Ghidorah's head is going to play some part in the next movie. We're just not quite sure what it is. And since, like, Ghidorah was not from Earth, he's an alien dragon, right? He can still, like, telepathically communicate with other heads. So, like, there's a head inside of or at least a piece of Ghidorah's head, one of Ghidorah's heads inside of Mechagodzilla, and there's the skull that, like, Dr. Sarazawa's son is, like, controlling Godzilla in. That was, like, so intricate. I was theorizing, because in the original King Kong versus Godzilla film, like, Kong can channel electricity from clouds and zap Godzilla's gills with it with his palms. I was theorizing somehow, like, maybe Kong gets a hold of, like, one of Ghidorah's heads, and there still is, like, a piece of, like, Ghidorah's, like, gravity beam stuck inside of it, and somehow Kong learns how to manipulate Ghidorah's powers and use it against, like, Godzilla. Like, maybe he can zap his gills and gain, like, the upper advantage over Godzilla, like how he does in the original. Because the original King Kong vs. Godzilla film, I haven't watched it in its entirety, but I know it ends with, like, the battle sort of, like, ending ambiguously. Like, both Titans kind of just, like, tumble into the ocean, and Kong, like, crawls out of it seemingly victorious. But you gotta remember that Godzilla lives in the ocean, so he probably just swam away and let Kong just, like, call it off or something like that. So, like, there was a draw, and I was assuming that it would end in a draw. I'm glad that this movie ended the way that it did, because I was not Team Godzilla, I was not Team Kong. I love both Titans equally. To be honest, that's just my personal opinion. It's like, yeah, I do have a more nostalgic type of King Kong than I do with Godzilla, because, like, the Godzilla movie that I grew up with was the really stupid, shitty, like, Roland Emmerich 1998, like, Godzilla, which is, like, universally despised by, like, Titan fans. And yet the King Kong movie I grew up with was the 2005 King Kong remake directed by Peter Jackson, which is still one of my favorite movies of all time. It's not a perfect 10 out of 10 movie. It has its issues, but like, yeah, I still, like, I've watched that movie like so many times over the years, and it's just like such a great film, like both as like a movie and technically speaking, and the performances. Yeah, that movie was just great. And yeah, but at the same time, it's like Godzilla is like the whole Godzilla franchise is the longest running film franchise in history, which is crazy. Way back in 1954, when like Godzilla was like a metaphor for nuclear weapons, because that like Japan made that movie like not even a decade after Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed to end World War II. So it was like the whole like scare and threat of nuclear weapons. That's the best part about fiction in general, is that even if it's like a fantasy or a sci-fi, like you know, very exotic settings, they all say something about human nature. Like, let's be real here, guys. Part of us wants Skull Island to be a real place, because like it's just human nature to be fascinated with the unknown. Even if there was a real Skull Island, if we went there, the island would probably just eat us alive and shut us out with, you know, the giant gorillas and, you know, dinosaurs and those like freaky natives and all that. But it's just like, at the same time, it would be so neat if a place like that actually existed, because it plays into like our childhood fantasies of like monsters being, you know, alive. And like I said, I really hope that like that the MonsterVerse continues, because like I said in my spoiler-free review, the main issue that I had with Godzilla vs. Kong was just like the pacing. This is the shortest MonsterVerse film, if my memory is correct, and I really feel like this film could have benefited from a longer running time, because like one thing disappointed me was like how we really don't get to see any of like the new monsters that they introduced in King of the Monsters. That was one thing I was looking forward to, and I was disappointed, but I understand why they did it, because, you know, I get it, budget concerns, you can't include everything, you know, with the new titans that were introduced, like Behemoth or Scylla or Methuselah, I think that's what the mountain titans called. Like, so many different titans that were introduced in the last movie that we just didn't get to see. We do get to see another Skullcrawler, though, when like Mechagodzilla is first tested, and they bring Mechagodzilla to life. And and for once, I actually felt sympathy for a Skullcrawler, because Mechagodzilla just made pure mincemeat out of it. You know, it was just like, oh, let's test it on a subject number 10, which is a Skullcrawler they yanked off of Skull Island, and like Mechagodzilla just rips it in half and just devours it right on the spot. And it would have been so neat. I understand why I didn't do this, but imagine them releasing Behemoth on a Mechagodzilla to, you know, like test out Mechagodzilla's strength, and just have like a Behemoth just be obliterated by this thing. That would have been so cool and upsetting, because like I know even though Behemoth was only on screen for like a total of like less than a minute in the last movie, like I remember watching like audience reactions to like seeing these other titans, and every time Behemoth was on screen, people would just like cheer like yay, probably because him and Kong are the only like mammalian titans in the whole MonsterVerse. So like we just have like an innate mammalian bias towards like, you know, other mammals as humans. And there were so many different like monsters that were introduced and like King of the Monsters, like on the title cards and whatnot, that we just didn't get to see like at all. It would have been so cool to see those monsters like be brought in this, and you know, in a future MonsterVerse movie. Like honestly, I would love to see Fenrir from Norse mythology fight Godzilla at some point, the giant wolf that's the son of Loki in Norse myths. That's one thing I really love about the MonsterVerse, is like it's like big emphasis on just international, like, you know, being what's the word I'm looking for? There's a big emphasis on like respecting different cultures from around the world, because like in the opening scene, the title cards, opening credits of Godzilla vs. Kong, there's like, you know, different artwork depicting like Kong and Godzilla fighting with their ancestors, like fighting like in different art styles from different time periods. Like, oh, that was really neat to me. And like the whole concept of Iwi mythology was super cool. Like there's just so much about this world. This movie really makes me want to pick up like the origins of Kong, or whatever they're called. Like there are a lot of comics that have come out, you know, for Kong Skull Island, establishing Kong's backstory in this like universe, and there's a lot of deleted scenes. Like I would love to read this at some point. And as for future MonsterVerse movies, one movie I definitely would like to see was one like centered around John C. Reilly's character in Kong Skull Island, because he was definitely aside from Kong, of course, he was definitely the best part about that movie. And like I would love to see a movie basically like a prequel to Kong Skull Island, where it's like it's him and that like Japanese guy that he was stranded with, like learning how to live on Skull Island with the Iwi people and like getting a feel for the land, because there's a lot of biodiversity on Kong Skull Island that we didn't get to see because they had to be scrapped. Like I watched a Dangerville video covering a deleted scene with a with like a giant white tiger that the characters apparently came across. I mean, the scene was scrapped due to pacing, but like a giant white tiger killing dudes. That's so cool. And like I said earlier, with the human characters being like, kind of just they know that they're secondary. I thought it was funny how like the villain who created Mechagodzilla, he's like so like cartoonishly the bad guy. He has a glass of whiskey in his hand. He's just like chuckling like maliciously at like his creation, and then like I guess a piece of Ghidorah still like gives Mechagodzilla free will for him to just like obliterate this facility and take control of like his own masters. And Bernie's just like, I didn't want to hear us that speech anyway. I guess I was making fun of like the classic movie cliche of like the villain giving like a stupidly long monologue explaining his evil plan instead of just like killing the heroes right there on the spot. Yeah, I thought that was just like a funny nod. It was like it felt like somewhat out of place in a MonsterVerse movie, but at the same time, it was also nice to know that the movie didn't take itself too seriously, because giant monsters like in nature are a little campy, and that is a issue with a lot of these like movies, like Star Wars and comic book movies. Like they all like some of them, like all the newer movies we've been getting recently, like take themselves like a little too seriously for their own good. It's like, guys, come on, it's Star Wars, or it's Godzilla, or it's King Kong, or it's Marvel, or it's DC. Like this stuff is in little nature isn't meant to be like is in nature is supposed to be a little corny, and I kind of want it to be that way. And yeah, I just love how like the film ends with Kong and Godzilla joining forces, especially when Godzilla like fires his nuclear breath at like Kong's axe's blade, so like he can gain the upper hand on Mechagodzilla, and it's just like, and Kong basically goes like Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat on Mechagodzilla and just rips its head off with the spinal cord still attached to it. Like, oh, that was really sweet. And like Godzilla kind of just like look, and he roars at him one last time. They call it a truce, knowing that they'll meet again. I'm assuming that like Godzilla is now like the master over Earth, while Kong is the master over like the Hollow Earth, because Kong's new home is like the Hollow Earth, and he like kind of roams freely there. Honestly, there could be like an entire movie like just in Hollow Earth, and I would so eat that up. Like the where Kong's ancestors came from, and like seeing Kong with like other giant gorillas would be interesting. So we've always like, both in the MonsterVerse and in the 2005 King Kong remake, like we all know that like Kong is basically the last of his kind, and there used to be like plenty of other giant gorillas running around, but they all died out from like other monsters or diseases or whatever. And yeah, that would I just think again the MonsterVerse, there's so much potential, and I just really hope that like they continue making more movies for this franchise, because I would certainly be on board for that. And yeah, I don't want this video to go on for too long, so I'm just gonna end it off right here. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like comment down below the times where you guys spotted any of the Easter eggs. Happy Easter, guys! Thank you so much for sticking with me for the past I'm still kind of like. I actually just, I know I'm not, like, showing my face in this video, but I got a buzz cut today, and I posted on Instagram, and, like, one of my friends commented, because I realized I have a new, like, hair look every year of being a full college student. Like, 2018, it was my pink hair. That was my first full year being a college student, and my friend Aspen commented, being like, oh, wow, I can't believe, like, that was the year that I met you, Vitas. Like, what has happened within the past 3 years? It's like, yeah, so much has happened within the past hell, just within the past year with quarantine and whatnot. Like, moving into my new house that I'm living in right now, like, that I moved into back in, like, the end of July, even that seems like ages ago, but, like, 8-9 months, geez, that's all it's been. Anyways, you guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching, and if you're new to this channel, please subscribe, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, links are in the description, and yeah, happy Easter, stay beastly.